Shalom WJC family. This Shabbat is not only the Shabbat that we will read Parshat Tzav, it is also Shabbat HaGadol, the Shabbat just before Passover, when we customarily talk about Passover, about the laws of Passover and how to kasher our homes and all of this, as well as read a Haftarah from the prophet Malachi, the 3rd chapter, all about the coming of Elijah and the ultimate redemption. I wanted to talk a little bit about Shabbat HaGadol, about the coming holiday of Passover, inspired a little bit by a podcast that I like to listen to, Mike Pesca's The Gist, and he had on yesterday a psychologist, I think it's from Stanford, Jamil Zaki, who is an expert in empathy and kindness. That is what he studies, and he wrote a book all about the war for empathy, and he's an interesting person to listen to at this moment. And what Mike Pesca and Dr. Zaki highlighted was the fact of how different this looks right now than we might have expected, right? Because what we might have expected is what we see in the movies, right? That ultimately there's going to be some kind of catastrophe. Everything in the world is going to change overnight. That part we've had. And the result is going to be everyone's going to lose it, and there's going to be warlords and riots and looting, and the worst, most animalistic, basic nature of everyone is going to come out. That's what we've been taught to believe in books and in movies. And maybe it's why the line at gun stores were so long when this first started to break. But the truth is that's not how things really work. And over the last month, I have been inspired at how people have stepped up and helped each other in ways I couldn't have possibly imagined. The truth is, as we experience this communal catastrophe of the coronavirus pandemic, something that is unlike anything any of us have experienced in our lifetimes, the level of empathy and kindness has been extraordinary. And the level of people bringing out their worst nature has been minimalistic. I mean, what are we criticizing people for? Ignoring the warnings to stay home, which is bad and not nice and shows a lack of empathy. But it's not hurting other people. It's not breaking into stores and stealing merchandise. We're criticizing people for having runs on supermarkets and buying more than they need. Okay, that's not great. That we're hoarding toilet paper and paper goods and making it so other people maybe can't get the food they need, and we're disrupting, supply chains, maybe. But no one's writing a movie about that. Like, that is not in our imaginations what we would be criticizing people for at this moment. Because the truth is, people are better than we give them credit for. And when we are up against it, we stand arm in arm. And that is one of the great lessons of the story of the Exodus. When the Jews leave Egypt, according to the Torah, there's about 2 million of them. Right, we're told 600,000 men of fighting age. If you pair them with 600,000 women, maybe more. Remember, they'd been throwing our boys into the river. So maybe there's more women than men, plus those who were under 20, plus those who were over fighting age. So 600,000 plus 600,000 plus another 600, 800,000. You're talking about almost 2 million people leaving Egypt. Their lives changed overnight. Right, the plagues went on for a year. But we get the sense that they never really believed they were necessarily leaving Egypt. Right, they didn't even break bread for their journey. Right, they left with whatever matzah they had left over from the Passover the night before. Their whole lives turned upside down. And you may have thought that people would have said, great, I'm getting out of here. I'm taking everything I can grab. And by the way, we did go and take things from the Egyptians, but it wasn't looting, right? We apparently asked permission and they said, yeah, take our stuff, just go. It wasn't exactly looting. And we leave. But we didn't just leave. Me and my family, every man for himself, every person for themselves. Right? Someone was helping the elderly and the infirmed. We know they came out with us because that was the tragedy. That was what made it so awful when Amalek, after we crossed the Red Sea, attacks our flanks and our behind of our camp, is because that's where the elderly and the infirmed would have been. The families and the children, those who could not fight. But that means we took them with us. That means nobody got left behind. That means even someone who needed a lot of help to make the journey, who couldn't feed themselves, who couldn't maybe even be mobile by themselves and had to be wheeled in some kind of cart or carriage or basket, they all came with us. And not only that, but then there was the Erev Rav, right? We left with a mixed multitude. That means that Egyptians, our former oppressors, who were impressed by the display God had put on over the last year, they joined in also. And we said, sure, come on with us. Come on with us. Yeah, we don't even have enough bread. We don't know how we're going to feed ourselves in the desert. We don't know where we're going to get water. But we'll take a few 100,000 extra people from the people who were our oppressors. We'll take our sick and our elderly because they are part of us. And if I were in their situation, I would want that kind of help. The story of the Exodus is an extraordinary story of empathy. And that's what grows out, and that is why what grows out of the Exodus story is the Jewish religion, the Jewish faith, the Jewish people, a people dedicated to others, to tikkun olam, to healing the world for everyone, not just for Jews. A people dedicated to each other. With all the persecutions that we have suffered over these thousands of years, Jews stand together. Kol Yisrael arivim ze el ze. Kol Yisrael arivim ze el ze. Each and every Jewish person is responsible one for the other. Wherever they are, however they practice, if they practice, and also so dedicated to the rest of the world to bring ethics, to bring goodness. We were a people forged in a massive act of empathy. And so we have maintained that empathy till today. And until recently, I thought that was what made us different. And that's what made us special. But the truth is, through this virus, I'm learning that we have no monopoly on empathy. And maybe it is not so counter to people's nature to take care of each other. Maybe that is the truer expression of humanity, the truer expression of civility, of living together. Empathy is part of who we are as people. And it might not make a good Hollywood story. And it might not make a great book. But boy, it's helping me live in a very difficult time. It should be inspiring you as well. And when we turn to the Passover story this year, this Shabbat HaGadol, if we can't get to shul to hear the Haftorah for Malachi read, at least we can study it ourselves and be reminded that the story of the Exodus is a story of redemption, that the story of Passover is a story that culminates with Eliyahu coming, Elijah the prophet coming, and focused on Mashiach and ultimate redemption, because ultimate redemption is something that we bring ourselves, something that we bring by caring for each other. And so how do we contribute? How do we help make this moment a moment of healing, a moment of empathy? As Passover approaches and we dedicate ourselves to our preparation, it's not so much, yes, we have to clean our houses and all of that, but look outward, look out of your house, even if you can't walk out of your house, and do something good for someone else. Listen to our leaders, right? Well, everyone's running around in chaos, great leaders. And there are some of those around today. They guide us in a path of empathy. They guide us in a path of caring for one another. Moses did it for us in the desert. Now we need to do it for each other, to guide ourselves to a perspective of empathy. Preparation for Passover this year is going to be harder and different than it's been before. And now, more than ever, I think we have to lean on those best aspects of what it is to be Jewish, what it is to be human, what it is to live in civilization. This year, we're going to throw open our doors and say, all who are hungry, let them come and eat. What does that even mean? What it means is, all right, we can't wait for them to come into our house. We can't even invite them into our house. So send Passover food to someone. Make a donation to an organization that is providing food for those who are working in hospitals under incredible stress. Write a note of thanks to doctors and healthcare workers who are doing this, police officers and first responders, paramedics who are in the trenches, dealing with this face to face, so we don't have to. Let's have some empathy for them. Let's recognize how they are our leaders today and support them in every way we can. And when we do that, we will truly understand the meaning of this Exodus story, how the Exodus leads to the creation of a Jewish people dedicated to a better world, dedicated to each other, dedicated to all of humanity. That's how we are forged as a nation. Let us move forward and be that example as we have been over history, and help make this moment a better moment for everyone. Chag Kasher v'Sameach. And we all have a happy and an appropriate kasher, a ritually appropriate and a meaningful appropriate Passover.